get the job done, Mike?
We're pretty small.
I didn't ask you if you think we're small. I asked you if you think we get the job done.
Think so.
Well, you're going to have to do better than I think so. Is that clear?
It's clear.
Now I'm going to assume that by now you've learned the world's not fair, and sometimes you get the short end, that's all you get. And if you don't do something personally to fix it, then that's all you're ever going to get.
Yes.
Mike. Do you want to play college ball? Do you want to get out of this town?
Think so.
Well, why aren't you doing something about it?
My mind's not right.
One of these days you're going to have to get out of this house. You're going to have to leave her.
Yes.
You got to accept the fact that people have to take care of themselves, and that includes you. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay. The truth is, against some pretty overwhelming odds, if you do decide to accept that, look at me, man. If you decide to accept that, you're gonna seriously fly, son.
All right, welcome to a very special Dwelling of Duels. This is the Impromptu Classics listening party. Why is this special? Because I just got a new computer, and after the challenges of our last stream, I wanted to make sure everything was in tip-top shape for next week's listening party. That's right, next week we've got a free month listening party. This weekend we've got golden oldies and chart topping recents. So yeah, I'm your host Evil Sonic, and tonight we'll be listening to some of the best of the Dwelling of Duels community. I asked the supporters channel for some suggestions, and they did not disappoint. I also picked a few songs that jump out at me for one reason or another. I was planning on also giving you all a pretty nice tour down good old memory lane. There are a couple of things, I don't know, just fitting topics with tonight's playlist. Some history, some lore, if you will. A little bit of background business to some of the common tropes and themes that come up in this monthly video game music remix competition of ours. So, Evil Sonic here, inviting you to sit back, grab a cold one, or if you're Angry Polar Bear listening at the gym, lean forward and keep running or bench pressing, or what do people do at the gym? I don't go to the gym. But wherever you are, keep it right here, because this is the Dwelling of Duels.
Orchestra hymns and late nights at Magfest. We all love DOD so much it rocks, it is the best. DOD, 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 DOD. I've been a fan since 2003. I love to hang in the listening party. I got so many last place songs cause I don't read reviews. I know I'll win with Wily stage 1 from Mega Man 2. DOD, 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 DOD. Cause anonymity. I made so many new songs because DOD is cool. I started this song way too late because I am a fool. DOD, 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 DOD,
Takes a fresher tune, he covers Deltarune, he tends to cartoon. He plays the songs that remind him of his childhood, he plays the songs that remind him of adulthood. skids. You sidechain the mids, your track hits the skids. Forget to save when you got yourself a good take, and then you save over rights, leave a better take.
Oh, monkey tits, monkey tits, monkey tits.
I get last place, but I submit again. You're never gonna vote me out, my pitch is off. I use Melodyne, you're never gonna vote me out. My vocals clipped, I record again. You're never gonna vote me out. I get last place, but I submit again. You're never gonna vote me out. We heard a Tony track, we heard a Corey track, we heard a Matma track, and then a Verb attack. The man knows when your track's a bit familiar. The man knows when your track's a bit peculiar.
Stay for the olds, for the olds, all the olds. Seems that's a yabberoo. Seems that's a yabberoo.
I get last place, I submit again. You're never gonna vote me out. I get last place, I submit again. You're never gonna vote me out. I get last place, I submit again. You're never gonna vote me out. I get last place, I submit again. I think I just figured it out. I get 12th place, out of 17. I guess I haven't worked it out. I'll fix my mix, and then I'll share again. Thank you for helping me out. It is the friends, I'm in on the way. I hope that we collaborate. We got first place, we should submit again. That's how we're gonna celebrate. We got first place, we should submit again. That's how we're gonna celebrate. We got first place, we should submit again. That's how we all celebrate.
Monkey tits, play this game and you'll see frequent monkey tits. Monkey tits, monkey tits. If you need to save your game, then monkey tits. Sultry kiss, monkey tits. Never fox or squirrel tits. Candy Kong's the only one with breasts and a monkey. Monkey tits, how I long to see those furry monkey tits. Monkey tits, monkey tits. Even King Kangaroo will do for monkey tits. Monkey tits, monkey tits. Leotard or Daisy Dukes, making Peter wanna puke with those monkey tits.
Now let's tear it up. Hear the virus come. It's tickling my buns. There's no chance to escape from the parasitic party on Star 388. I'm not having fun. The party's just begun. It's parasitic break from the parasitic party on Star 388.
All right, you just heard Sarah Schwarz's Parasitic Party on SR388 from Metroid Fusion. That was the March 2012 Jingle Month. From Big Waron and Numa Joe. I gotta say this in the right font. PP Heart. From Doshin the Giant, Tinkling Toddler Liberation Front, Assemble. That was a recent one, December 2024 Smash Bros. Month. From the Man PF, Gamer of the Winds, Chocobow, Dakota City Rag, and Zachary Chapman, Wily theme. From Mega Man 2, April 2023, free month. Darmok, Twirling Curtis, The Bitter Roosh, Shay's Violin, Angry Polar Bear did Doghouse of the Cowboy Cop. That was Phoenix Wright from June 2023 Wild West. I'm going to skip the game names, this is taking too long. Anonymous DoD contestant, Do Butterflies Dream of Caterpillar Troubles, Monkey Tits from July 2021 Vocal Month. Plumbawamba, Numa Joe, Angry Polar Bear, Andromeda, and Evil Sonic. Pud Thumpin' from September 2023, the 20th anniversary. And Caco Missile, Angry Polar Bear, did DOD is cool? Yes, it is. That was November 2021 crowdfunded games. Okay, everybody. I'm going to try troubleshooting something about that slider everyone seems to be noticing. Fingers crossed. I'm going to turn off foobar and turn it back on. And you can still hear me talking. You can still hear me coughing. Let's try this out. Does it move? Doesn't look like it's moving. Shit. So, that is a thing that we'll need to figure out. In the meantime, little more DoD history and lore for all of y'all. I swear, I haven't been coughing, but now I saved it all up for right now. I sound great. Dwelling of Duels is a video game remix competition that started in 2003 when someone on the internet disagreed with someone else on the internet. A message board promoting a few local Phoenix area bands called The Shiz became the birthplace of this monthly contest with a relatively simple format. Each month, a theme is announced. Anyone looking to participate has to arrange, record, and mix their cover of a video game source that fits the theme. So, if the theme is Nintendo 64 month, you have to cover from something from... Can you guess? That's right, Chrono Trigger. No! Nintendo 64. Since the Dwelling of the Duels began, over 1,300 artists have submitted over 5,800 songs from over 2,000 games over the course of 256 duels and counting. Apparently when I talk a lot, I have to cough. I'm also glad you're here to witness that. Anyway, that's 328 hours of free video game music that's on the DoD website. It's almost 2 whole weeks of uninterrupted music. We are just 8 hours shy of DoD music being a literal fortnight. Christ, I need cough syrup. I'm gonna go get the Delsum upstairs. That's cough suppressant. A pharmacist recommended it to me. You know, pharmacists are doctors too. I've been talking long enough, so keep it right here. You're gonna hear some more bangers, damn bangers, and statistics. Because this is Dwelling of Duels. All right. You just heard Evan Hackstock Bat the Funk Out. Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball from Tornado of Solos 2019. Ryan 8-Bits, Galactus's Bidding from Silver Surfer, Tornado of Solos 2006. House the Great, who is in the house. Laura S. Tarde from Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse from Tornado 2004, the Clockwork Competition. Anyone notice the trend there, the trifecta? We'll get back to that. Big Oron's Dream Machine from Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, March 2024, HAL Laboratory Month. We also heard House the Great's Murdered by Flora from King's Quest VI, April 2006, American Adventure Games. And Scaros, What's in a Curse? Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. I didn't realize how much Castlevania and House I'd been stacking in here. I should pay more attention. April 23, free month. Retro Reboots, Hills of Badassery from Autumn Hills. Hills of Badassery Autumn Hills from The Messenger, July 24. And The Runaway for Escape from the Temple from Little Big Adventure, December 2019. This is the very special first annual late March impromptu listening party of DoD Classics. I'm Still Evil Sonic. The last 3 tracks we just listened to were from Tornado of Solos competitions. What the hell is that, you might say? Well, fire up Napster, crack open a Sparks, because we're going to go all the way back to 2004 for this story. House the Great, I beg you to fact check me on this because you were there. You were in the Pantheon of Legends. You saw it happen. So, to celebrate the first anniversary of Dwelling of Duels, a very special challenge was issued. Tornado of Solos is when a single, musically challenging source is selected. And while the name Tornado of Solos didn't technically come until a little bit later, the first spiritual tornado was in October of 2004 with the Clockwork music from Castlevania 3. In the past, the Tornado of Solos competitions actually had a judges panel of talented and respected musicians from the DoD community who would evaluate the tracks in all the ways that we are so familiar with, giving notes on production, performance, arrangement, all of that. And there was a judge's decision as well as a community vote decision. I don't know exactly when it changed, but it became pretty tricky to fit that format into that whole fast-paced DoD calendar. So at a certain point, I think we just shifted to the traditional community voting. But as far as traditions around Tornado of Solos, last year we had one with the listening party at VGM Con. This year we've got a listening party at VGM Con. There is going to be a Tornado of Solos. The theme is going to get announced next Friday. So yeah, we'll be announcing the theme at the listening party next week, Friday, March 28th. That is the starting date for working on those tornadoes. You're going to have just under 2 weeks, otherwise known as roughly the length of the entire uninterrupted DoD catalog. Submission deadline is going to be Thursday, April 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern. There's going to be a live, in-person listening party on Saturday, April 12th. I believe it's going to be 2 p.m. Central. That's 3 p.m. Eastern, which is the correct time zone. Voting deadline and results announcement is going to happen sometime after that. We're hoping it's going to happen in person in Minnesota. What the hell? Oh, I have a bunch of notes on other stuff that I had and then a few act breaks ahead of time. I thought I was going to do a whole spiel, but this was all tornado stuff. House, did I get everything right? Talking about tornadoes, Ryan 8-Bit is the tornado champion. He has won. He has come in first place. He has gotten a gold for 3 separate tornadoes. And where did he come in the first tornado? He came in fourth for the Pictionary Month tornado. How do I not remember he came in 4th? Damn, that is so like him to just come out and like, yeah, I'm just gonna come really high in the tornado. In the first tornado, he came in 7th out of 9th, which just seems weird and wrong. But, oh, 8-Bit, we love you. So yeah. This here is Dwelling of Duels, the impromptu listening party of classic hits, and let's keep it right here. Let's listen to some more of that Dwelling of Duels. Duels, duels, duels.
days tonight. And Is los kan wij
aisle. Stupid happy boat ride. Please keep your crew together as you walk past the Singer Hive. Claptraps under age 7 must be accompanied by an adult. Please do not carry any food or cutlasses when entering its little aisle. And please keep your arms and tails inside the boat at all times. Thank you.
It's a little isle that's full of crocodiles. Here's the carnival, the one you're in right now. There's a library, the orchestra in silence. We range up the wild like animals do. Big books have been the story, and they're all in a dungeon that smells like red onions. It's the beauty, the crowded quiet. It's a dungeon filled with radiation. It's almost the end of its stupid life. Oh, it's a little isle that's full of crocodiles. It's lost and for us, that isn't fit for you. It's a little isle that's full of crocodiles. It's just what we do. The crocodiles, the crowds stay wild. Oh, it's a little isle of crocodiles. This one is over, get off the boat. There's it near the crazy trembling gate. Shop and buy a stupid t-shirt or a fit.
Thank you for riding It's a Little Isle. Please keep your ugly children seated until this boat comes to a complete stop and you're told to disembark. Enjoy the rest of your day at Crazy Crabland.
En español, las cucarachas entran, pero no pueden salir.
In Kremlish.
Alright, you just heard Harpsiboards, Ivy Inferno from Donkey Kong Country 2. That was from June 21, the VG Lead Sheets month. Prince of Darkness, aka Pud. Ragnar Rock from Dragon Warrior 4. That was April 2012, free months. This one's got quite the credited list here. General Grunt, Numa Joe, Michelle LL, Dylan William Vanderwall, Angry Polar Bear, David Lalande, Deluxe Dolomite, Pixels and Paradiddles, Ian Martin, Shays Viola, Nemo Fairlight, Did Kremlin Stupid, Happy Boat Ride, Complete Ride Through Mix from Donkey Kong Country 2, Matt Matat, I'm a Cyber Girl in a Cyber's World, Deltarune, that was July 23, Silent Protagonist Month, Nadina Laert, featuring Ronan Op F, Evil Sonic, Dreg's Heart Render, Andromeda, Atomic, and Ian Martin, Isloskane from Chrono Trigger, that was December 21's free month, and Yvonne Hackstock, Maybe I'm Extreme from Final Fantasy VIII. Oh, Hackstock. You and all those gold medals. This guy over here, he's won so many times that it's like a given that he's just going to pass on claiming that DoD prize whenever he wins. Oh, what's that? You didn't know DoD had prizes? Well, I got news for you, pal, because Dwelling of Duels has awesome prizes, thanks to Impact Soundworks. For the past, I think, 8 years or so, Impact Soundworks has offered up a prize to the gold place medalist in each DoD competition. They have a ton of awesome virtual guitars and basses that a lot of them were recorded by some of our very own favorite people here. They've got that Pud and Norg bass, they've got some Sixto guitars, they even have drums from Frank Klepacki, perhaps best known for his vocal performance as the Innkeeper in the 6th place track from October 23, DoD Public Radio presents The Castle of Terror. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, you know what I says to Hackstock? I says, listen, last year, Impact Soundworks expanded the prize selection by a ton. You probably want to get these prizes. It's not just Super Audio Card or drums or some virtual guitars and basses anymore. You can choose the Charisma Vocal Library, the Fredonia Grand Organ, the Rosette Fingerstyle Guitar, the Ventus Winds Duduk, and the Shreddage XTC Amp Sim. But you don't have to be like 2-time gold medalist Evil Sonic to enjoy the glory that is Impact Soundworks. They have a bunch of awesome free plugins, like the classic SNES Verb. If you haven't already, you should check it out. They've got a ton of stuff. It's awesome. I'm not joking about this. I'm really serious. Go to Impact Soundworks right now. Don't leave the stream. Keep listening, but go to Impact Soundworks too. And since I've said I'm not joking about this, it's time for more listening. Keep it in this general vicinity, because this is the Dwelling of the Duels. All right. This stream is not a good stream. Glad this is happening tonight and not next week during the actual contest listening party, because that would be a bummer. And yeah. I don't want to belabor this, but I also don't want to give up immediately. Okay. It looks like it's back. Do I have gig internet or fiber? I honestly don't know. I have to ask Jackie. Okay. It's back up. 2700 kbps. Fuck. I'm calling it, everybody. Bit rate. Well, everyone, I think I've got a decent connection for a minute or two, so this is me signing off. Thank you all for your assistance with this troubleshooting event. Hope we got a chance to listen to some good music. Sorry we didn't get to listen to all of it. But I am going to call it tonight, and we are going to troubleshoot this, and someone will be hosting next week's listening party. Fingers crossed it's me, but if that's not the way it goes, then we got plenty of other talented people with strong internet connections that are going to keep it right here for you, because this has been Dwelling of Duels.